Hey, it's Mark Lanier with your video thought for the day. So this week I've been talking about what advice I would give my younger self if I could go back in time. And yesterday on Wednesday, I spoke about the fact that I would teach myself or tell myself, be careful and make an early determination of what habits you want in your life that you don't have right now, and what habits you want to get out of your life that you do have right now. Because we are creatures of habit, and what we habitually do is our default mechanism. And there are ways that we need to have positive default mechanisms, reactions, just go-to ideas and thoughts and practices. And then there are some that are destructive that we want to avoid, those go-to habits that are spiral down, those go-to reactions that may be visceral but aren't productive. And so I talked about the way I'd give myself that advice, but I left for today the advice I'd give myself on how to cultivate good habits, how to get rid of bad habits. And that advice would come in part from not only an understanding of Scripture, but an understanding of science as well. So Scripture teaches us in Romans 12, chapter 2, Paul has a really cool comment. He says that we are to renew our minds. This is part of growing spiritually before God and honoring God for who He is. This is how we cultivate good habits and how we get rid of bad habits. It's through the renewal of your mind. Now, that word renewal in the Greek is an interesting word because it's not really found, the word that Paul uses, outside Christian literature. But it's a composite word of two different ideas. It's an idea of upwardness, but it's an idea also of freshness. Ana is the Greek word for an upward movement, and kainos is a Greek word for fresh, and you put those together and you get this word from Paul. He wants us to refresh or renew our minds upward, and this becomes a very important thing if we understand the way the brain works chemically. The brain is in part a chemical part of the body. And by that I mean memories are actually chemically induced. Good feelings are chemically induced. Depression is chemically induced. Comfort is chemically induced. And so when we eat certain foods, it has a chemical reaction in the brain, and it makes us often align those foods with feelings of comfort and the memories of emotions that are solid. That's comfort eating. You know, all of these habits that we do are formed in our brains. And so when Paul talks about the need to renew our minds, we need to cultivate good habits. They don't just come. And sometimes that's in baby steps. Sometimes it's just deciding, I'm not going to think that way right now. I'm going to think differently. Sometimes it's established not just through I'm going to think differently, but I'm going to do differently, because our habits are tied in with what we're doing. Kinetic memory is also a kind of memory. It's a memory of motions. You know, you say, well, you never forget to ride a bike. Don't know if that's true or not, but that's an idea of kinetic memory. And so our memories in our brain that are chemically stored are associated with different things. And what we've got to do as people seeking to renew our minds is simply make changes there. Let's become people who look at ways to see the world differently, to reach out for something that's beyond who we are. And I think that what that involves for me, and the advice I'd give my younger self, it's this: make a decision to do what's right if it's at all possible within your being. Make a decision to think what's right, because your thoughts are going to help regulate your actions. Jesus said, as a man thinks in his heart, and heart is the thinking organ to a Jew at the time of Jesus, so he's speaking in their language. As a man thinks, so is he. And so we want to control the mind by influencing what we think, and in that way we'll influence what we do. And we will learn to get rid of the bad habits and put in the good habits. One last piece of advice I've got for myself comes tomorrow. But that's your video thought for the day.